Okay, so we will be doing test corrections on fractions and percentages. Now, I can't find the test in my folders, so I'll just have to write the questions out. Now, with the short answer, I won't be doing the questions on the short answer, but I will be doing those that involve some basic fraction skills, just to make sure that everyone is okay with these. So we're doing question 9 on the short answer, and I'll just write the question out. We've got 5 over 6 plus 4 over 9. Now, with fractions, whenever we add or subtract fractions, so we'd be doing the same thing if this was a takeaway, a subtraction, we have to have the same denominators. Okay, now if I look at my smallest number here, which is a 6, I can't turn my 6 into a 9. I can't go 6 times 2, that gives me 12. There's nothing for me to multiply 6 by to give me 9. So the fastest way is to simply multiply the denominators with each other. So I'll just change the color. So I'll just times this 6 by 9 and times this 9 by 6. And I can see both denominators will then be 54. And of course, what I do to the bottom, I must do to the top, and times 6. And I'll be left with, so 5 times 9 is 45 over 54 plus, and then 4 times 6, 24 over 54. And now that we have the same denominators, we don't add them. It will just remain 54, but we add the numerators. So 45 plus 24, and leaves me with 69. Okay, and now we can simplify 69 and 54. A common factor is 3, and you could use your calculator to help you find common factors. I'll just squeeze it down here, which then leaves me with 23, and 54 divided by 3 is 18. And now that I have an improper fraction, we know improper fractions are fractions where the numerator, in this case 23, is larger and it's on top. So the way to turn it into a mixed fraction is how many times can 18 fit into 23? We are saying 23 divided by 18, and putting that in your calculator gives you a decimal, but to avoid decimals, just spell 18. The same thing to say 18 can fit into 23 once, so one big whole number, remainder 5 over 18. And that's it. We'll leave our answer in fraction form because we're dealing with a question that involves fractions and not decimals. And just remember, simplify where you can, and of course turn an improper fraction into a mixed fraction. Now our next question involves multiplying fractions. And whenever we see multiplication, all you have to do is simplify before you multiply, and then get your answer. And to simplify this, you can simplify anything from the top and the bottom. So that it can be vertical, like for example, if I could simplify 5 and 9, or 3 and 20, or it can be diagonal. So 5 and 20 I can simplify, and 3 and 9. Okay, so I'll just change the color. Now, I can't simplify my 5 and 9 because they don't have a common factor, but 9 and 3 I can. So divide 3 by 3, leaves me a 1, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. 5 and 20, a common factor is 5. Divided by 5, we have 1. 20 divided by 5 is 4. And then we simply multiply our numerators across. So 1 times 1 is 1 over 3 times 4 to give me 12. And that's it. Now, you could have multiplied 5 times 3, okay, which would have given us 15, and then 9 times 20. But it would take longer to simplify. So 9 times 20, we have 180. Okay, and yes, we can simplify this. These numbers aren't too big, but sometimes they do get very large. And we could have just divided by a common factor of 5 and ended up with 1 over 12 as well. So that's why it's important to simplify before we do multiply. And we don't have to have the same denominators when multiplying. Okay, and our next question, which is on division. And on the test, you had a question like this. It was 3 over 5 divided by 9. Now, whenever you see division and fractions, you just got to turn the division to times. You can turn it into times by just flipping the fraction on the right. So not the first fraction, but the second fraction. Now, this 9 is really over a 1. And then I have to flip this fraction, and I'll be left with 3 over 5. Now, I've changed it to times because I've flipped my 9 and 1 to get 109. And then I just have a look and see. I can see that my 3 and 9 can be simplified before I multiply this out. So divided by 3 to leave me with a 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And then I'll just do it up here. There's no room in the bottom. And then we simply go 1 times 1, which is 1, over 5 times 3, which is 15. And that's our answer. So just remember, when you see division, we have to turn it to multiplication. And then simplify our fractions before we multiply. And then with addition or subtraction, it's a bit different. We have to have the same denominators. And that's basically, if you remember those few skills, you can't go wrong with fractions. Now we'll start with the extended answer. So question 1 on the second part of the test. Now this question here, it asks you to arrange the following in order from smallest to largest by converting them to a percentage first. So just read your question on your test, and it asks us to turn these into a percentage first. And you can just use your calculator as a tool to do this. And we know that to turn anything into a percentage, just times it by 100. Starting with the first fraction. Now 3/4, you should automatically know 3/4 is 75%. But to show working out, if I have 3 over 4, all I have to do is times it by 100. Simplify before I multiply. Divide 4 by 4 gives me 1. 100 divided by 4 is 25, which leaves me with 3 times 25 is 75. And 1 times 1 is just 1. I don't have to write it over 1. And don't forget, because we multiply by 100, it's now a percentage. So 3/4 is 75%. Next, 70 out of 100. Yes, I can times this by 100, but if it's out of 100, it's already a fraction. So this fraction here is just 70%. And to prove it, if I have 70 over 100 and I times this by 100, what happens to the hundreds? It's really 100 over 1. They just cancel out and leaves me with 70. That's why I can see it is just 70%. So far I have 75% and I have 70%. Now this fraction here, I'll squeeze it down here. I've got 710 over 1000. Now a shortcut is just chop off 1 0 from the top and 1 from the bottom and have a look. It leaves us with 71 out of 100. And we know anything out of 100 is a percentage. So that's just saying it's 71%. And I'm done. If I had have multiplied this by 100 instead of crossing out the zeros, I would have still been left with 71%. But the trick was, I can see 100 on the bottom after crossing off my zeros and 71 on top, so it's 71%. And just remember, anything out of 100 is automatically a percentage. Just another way of writing it using this symbol. All right, my next one, I've got 76%, which is already a percentage, so I don't have to do anything. So I've got 76%. Okay, I'll just clear the page and write what I've got, what percentages I've found. Just 1 second. So now just continuing, I found these fractions and their percentages, and I have to still do 5 over 7 and find the percentage of that, and also 4 over 5. And once again, to turn anything into a percentage, just times it by 100. And you have your calculators, 100%. Don't forget that symbol. Now you have your calculators as a tool, and you can just put this straight into your calculator, okay? Doing it by hand, well, I've got 5 times, I can't simplify 7 and 100, so I've got 5 times 100, which is 500 over, and 7 times 1 is 7, okay? It's a percentage, so don't forget that, but I'll just squeeze in what my fraction will be. So 7 into 500 can fit 71 times. But because you're allowed to use your calculators, we can just use, just put 500 divided by 7 straight into our calculator. And I'll just do it on mine. And it leaves me with 71.42857,143. Just round it off to, I guess, 2 decimal places. So I'll be left with 71.43, and it's a percentage. Okay? And I can see that 71.43% is larger than this one here, which is 71%. Okay? And I can start to see the order I'll be putting these in. But before I do that, I've got my final fraction, which is 4 out of 5. And just to estimate, 4 is close to 5. So I almost have 100%. Here I had 5 out of 7, which is past halfway, but not 100%. And so I should be getting something 80 or above. So let's just see. So 4 over 5 times 100 to turn it into a percentage, or 100 over 1. And don't forget, we have to add that percentage symbol. Okay? And simplify before we multiply, divide by 5, and 100 divided by 5 is 20, and 4 times 20 leaves me with 80. 1 times 1 is just 80 over 1. It's now a percent, and I'm left with 80%. And I'm done. And now all I have to do is arrange this from smallest to largest. So looking at my percentages that I found, so I've got 75%, 70%, 71%, 71.43%, and 80%. So obviously the smallest one is 70%. I'll use a different color for my final answer. So I've got 70%, that should come first. And then I have, where was it, 71%. Whoop, I'm not going to fit all this in, I think. And then 71.43%. And then 75% will come next. And finally, the 80%, which is the largest. And that's it. And we have shown working out and shown the teacher that we know what we're doing, and using our calculator as a tool, especially for this one here, it was easier to use a calculator than turning it into a mixed fraction. But that's pretty much it. So just remember to turn anything into a percentage, times it by 100, and then add the percentage symbol. Now, question 2, we have fractions that we're subtracting, but also it involves negative numbers. So basically, these brackets don't have to be there. They're just saying a negative 2 over 3, or negative 2/3, take away or subtract a negative 4/5. So in these brackets, there's nothing for me to calculate, so I can pretend they're not there. But I can see that 2 negatives are sitting together to make a positive. So I'll just turn that into a positive. So I'll be left with negative 2 over 3, 2/3, plus 4 over 5. Now, once again, using our fraction skills, because we are adding, we have to make sure we have the same denominators. So the fastest way is to simply multiply 3 with the 5. So 3 times 5 to give me 15. What I do to the bottom, I must do to the top. And 5 times 3 to give me 15 on this side. And of course, multiply the 4 by 3. So my new, fractions, I've got 2 times 5 is 10 over 15. Now, just be careful that negative is sitting there. So we just make sure we write it in. So 10 over 15 plus 4 over 5. So don't forget that negative, because I almost did. Oh, over 15. Now, another way to write a fraction or 2 fractions with the same denominators is like this. So I've got a negative, so I'm going to leave a negative there, or I can say it's a negative 10. plus 4 all over the same denominator, which is 15. And you can see why it looks clearer this way. That negative, even though it's sitting in the middle, it can belong to the 15 or it can belong to the 10. So when I'm calculating this, obviously the 15 is my denominator and it won't change. I'll just squeeze it here. So the 15 stays 15. But I have to calculate what's on top. So that negative, it's like I have a negative 10. And negative 10 plus 4 leaves me with a negative 6. And you can leave your answer like that. Or if you wanted to, that negative, you can just write 6 over 15 and the negative can just sit in the middle. As long as you have one negative in your answer, it's correct because you're saying the whole number or the whole fraction is a negative fraction. If you had 2 negatives, then it'll be different because 2 negatives will make a positive. So just remember that negative sitting in the middle, in this case, we can say it belongs to the 10 because down here, I then have to go minus 10 plus 4. And that's your answer there. Now with 2b, once again, we have a negative fraction and we're subtracting. Now, whenever we see a mixed fraction, using our fraction skills, turn a mixed fraction into an improper one before doing anything, okay? And ignore that negative. Don't go 6 times a negative 3 plus 1. Just leave the negative there for now. Just go, what is 6 times 3 plus 1? 6 times 3 is 18, and 18 plus 1 is 19. So I have a negative 19 over 6. Okay, and we can see how it's still the same fraction, just written as an improper fraction. Take away 5 over 8. Once again, because we are subtracting fractions, we have to have the same denominators. I can't turn my 6 into an 8, but I guess I could just go 6 times 8 to give me 48 and 8 times 6 to give me 48. But I know that another common factor of 6 and 8 is 24, and it's a lower common multiple of these two numbers, so I'll use that instead. So I know that 6 times 4 gives me 24, and I must do the same to the top. And I know that 8 times 3 will give me my 24. And this will help me with simplifying later on. So now I can see it's a negative there. I have 6 times 4, so 24. And then take away 8 times 3, which is 24. And now I must multiply my numerators. So 5 times 3, I have 15. And 19 times 4 is 76. Okay, and if this helps, because we have a negative sitting there, it's really saying minus 76, or we can write it like this, minus 76 minus 15, and they are all both over 24. Same thing. And now minus 76 minus 15, well, because they're both negative, the trick is to just add them. 76 plus 15 is 91. And of course, it's going to be a negative 91 over 24. And because we have an improper fraction, well, we'll go how many times can 24 fit into 91, which is 24 into 91 fits in 3 times. And you can use your calculator to help you with remainder 19 over 24. And please don't forget, I'll use a different color just to emphasize, this is a negative fraction. We've only got one negative, so our answer must be negative. So I have a negative 3 and over 19 over 24, okay? And you can get a decimal, but like I said, we're dealing with fractions, so we'll leave our answer in fraction form. So this was more of a challenging one, only because we were dealing with larger numbers, but if you've got a calculator, it's there with you, and it makes it easier for you. Just use it as a tool. All right, our next question. So now question C, we can see we've got all these fractions, and in between every fraction, we are multiplying them. So we do not have to have the same denominators. All we have to do is simplify before we multiply. So I'll change my color, and now we know we can simplify anything from the top and anything from the bottom, okay? And it can be, for example, if I wanted to, I can simplify my 12 and my 4, which is all the way down there, because 12 is on top and 4 is on the bottom. Or I can do my 30 and 30. I could do my 4 and 2 over here, or 4 and 14. I could do, let's see, 15 and 5. And it's an endless amount of things I can do. So it's up to you what you want to do and start wherever you want to start. I'll start with my 30 and 30. Because they're the same, I'll just cross them off. And they're a 1 because I divided by 30. Next thing I see that, all right, I'll do my 12 and my 4. 4 because I can divide it by 4, which is 1. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 15 and 5 divided by 5, that's 1. 15 divided by 5 is 3. Next, I've got 14 and 7. I'll just do that. I know that 7 divided by 7 is 1. 14 divided by 7 is 2. Now, I can't do my 2 and 2 because they are both on top, but I can do my 2 and my 8. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And I can also see here, I can still keep going. So if your working out gets messy, what you can do is stop and write the fractions you have left. I've got 3 over 3. I've got 1 times 1 over 1 times 1 over 1. I don't have to write this again because anything times 1 is itself. So that's all gone. But here I've got 2 over 1. So times 2 over 1 times 1 over 4. Now I can multiply this out, but I can still keep simplifying. I can see I can cross off my 3 and 3, and that's now a 1 and a 1. And my 2 and 4, well, 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. And so I'll finally be left with 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1, over 1 times 1 times 2, which is 2. So after all that, the answer was simply a half. So please do not go 12 times 5 times 30 times 14 times 2 and then multiply your bottom numbers, because you end up with large numbers and it's really hard to simplify them. And plus, as your teacher, I want to see your simplifying skills to show me you understand how to simplify fractions, and which is simply anything from the top and anything from the bottom. Okay, next question. Now with this question, check your operation first. We are dividing. Okay, we have fractions. I can see a mixed fraction that I'll change into an improper fraction. And because I'm dividing, I want to turn this to multiplication. So they are some of the skills that I'll have to be applying into this question. So one thing at a time. First step, turn 2/3 into an improper fraction. So 3 times 2 plus 1. Don't forget it's a negative fraction, so negative is there. Now 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7 over 1, divided by, and I don't have a mixed fraction here, it's just 21 over 30. Now I don't need these brackets here because in the brackets there's nothing for me to calculate, and it's just, the question is just saying dividing by a negative 21 over 30. So I won't write my brackets now. You can if you want to, and I have negative 21 over 30. Okay, now my next step is to change my division to times. Okay, so I'll just circle it and highlight I'm turning it to times. To do this, I have to flip 21 and 30. Now, don't forget the negative that's sitting there. So I've got negative 7 over, oh, sorry, I don't know why I put 7 over 1, sorry. It should be 7 over 3. Sorry about that. So negative 7 over 3 times negative 30 over 21. Okay, and now that I've done this, all I have to do is simplify before I multiply, and I'm done. Now, we can see that we have two negatives, and because we're multiplying, a negative times a negative will give me a positive answer. Or two negatives, because it's even, is an even amount of negatives, which will give me a positive result. So before I multiply this out, I can see I can simplify a few things. My 3 and 30, divided by 3, it's 1. 30 divided by 3 is 10. And 7 divided by 7 is 1. And 21 divided by 7 is 3. And then multiply it out. Well, I know it's a positive answer, so 1 times 10 is just 10 over 1 times 3, which is 3. It's an improper fraction, so finally, how many times can 3 fit into 10? Well, 3, 6, 9, so that's 3 times. Remainder 1 over 3. And we keep the same denominator. And make sure your answer is positive, because two negatives, when they're divided together or multiplied together, leave you with a positive. Now our next question, it asks us, well, tells us 71% of students study a language, and what fraction study a language. Now we know that 71% is actually a fraction out of 100. So the fraction would be 71 out of 100. Now check to see if we can simplify this fraction. 71 and 100, there are no common factors, so we can't simplify it, and that's it. So it's telling us 71 people out of 100 people, or 71 students out of 100 students study a language. And that's it. Now, looking at that figure, there is quite a large amount of students who study a language. But now question B asks us, well, how many students then would study out of 300? Now remember, out of is referring, this vinculum here means out of. So I am saying here 71 out of 100. And now question B is asking us, out of 300 students, how many would you expect us to study a foreign language? So I have to turn that 100 into 300. And to do that, how do I turn 100 into 300? Just times it by 3. But what I do to the bottom, I must do to the top. Okay, so now it's going to be, that means out of, so out of, 300. And 71 times 3, use your calculator as a tool, leaves us with 213. And that's it. And it's just saying, well, out of 300 students, 213 study a foreign language. So the key thing here is, when you see out of, just think of the vinculum. That line there, it means out of. 71 out of 100. To make it out of 300, we have to times 100 by 3. What we do to the bottom, we must do to the top. And that will be our final answer. Now, our next question, question 4, on the other page, asks us to change the following numbers into percentages. Okay? Now, to turn anything into a percentage, okay, you just have to times it by 100 and add the percentage symbol. And that's it. So all I have to do with 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers, they are all numbers. One's a whole number, one's a decimal, and 2 are fractions. All I have to do is times these by 100, simplify if I can, and we're done. So what is 2 times 100? I know that 2 times 100 is 200%. And that's it. And the trick is, whenever we have a whole number, I can see here I've got a 2, which is a whole number. You will have something above 100%. And having, for example, a 200% growth is, I guess, quite large, because you've pretty much doubled what you've had. So we'll do, well, I guess we can do C next. So with C, to multiply this by 100, yes, you can just put it in your calculator. But the trick is, if we times anything by 100 or 1,000, all we have to do is move the decimal to the right. Now, because I'm multiplying by 100 and I can see 100 has 2 zeros, I move my decimal 2 places to the right, and my decimal will end up there. So if I times this by 100, I will have, now that's gone from there. So I don't have to write 006, it's just 6.6. And of course, we are actually multiplying by 100%, so 6.6%. Done. Next one, we'll do B. I've got 5 over 6. Now, all I've got to do is times it by 100. Okay, and I know that 100 is over 1, and I'll add the percentage symbol later. Simplify before we multiply. I can divide 6 by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 100 divided by 2 is 50. Nothing else I can really do. I'll just rub this question off quickly so I have more room, and I'll write it up later. So now, for B, I've got 5 times 50. So that will leave me with 250 over 3 times 1, which is 3. And now this is a percentage, so don't forget to add your symbol, timesing by 100%, okay? Now we don't leave our fraction like this because it doesn't really make much sense. So how I can check on my calculator. If I just use my calculator, well, I'll just turn it on. So I'll be left with So I'll be left with, so 3, oh, you can just use a calculator. So 250 divided by 3 is, using my calculator, it gives me 83.33333%, or 83.3. Don't forget your little dot on top, and it's a percentage. But I know that 0.3333 is also a third. Okay, so another way of doing it, 3 into 250 beats 83 times. Okay, and then 83 times 3 is 249. So my remainder is 1 over 3, and I can see that's a third percent. And we're done. Now, we should have really left our answer in fraction form because the question given to us was in fraction form. But as long as you're showing that you understand how to do this and simply turn, in this case, the fraction into a percentage, even though you had a decimal, it's still fine. But like I said, the best answer would have been this one here. Now with D, we once again have a fraction. All we have to do to turn it into a percentage is times it by 100 and add the symbol. But because we have a mixed fraction, I'll turn this mixed fraction into an improper fraction. So I've got 5 times 2, which is 10, and 10 plus 4 is 14. And we know we keep the same denominator, so 14 over 5 times 100, and the 100 is really 100 over 1. And I'll keep adding this symbol so I don't forget it. Simplify before we multiply. I can divide 5 by 5 once. 100 divided by 5 is 20. And then I'm left with 14 times 20, which is 280. And we're left with 280%. Okay. And like I said, because we had a whole number too, we expected to get 200% at least. And if you remember from the previous question, 4 over 5 was actually 80%. So 200 plus 80 gives you 280%. Okay, our next question. Now, question 5 is asking us to convert percentages to fractions. So these questions are different because we are given a percentage. So we are not turning this into a percentage because they already are percentages. We are just turning them into fractions. Fractions that are simplified and don't have this symbol here. Now, this one, the first one's easy. 15% is simply 15%. It's the same as 15 out of 100. And we're pretty much done. But we have to simplify this. And I can see if I divide them both by 5 and divide 100 by 5 as a common factor, I'll be left with 15 divided by 5 is 3. 100 divided by 5 is 20. I can't simplify anymore, and that's it. So you can say 3 out of 20 people don't brush their teeth at night. Okay, now with B, it's just as easy, but this is a question that tricks so many students and confuses so many people. So I just charged my Okay, sorry. So with this question, we have a 1/4%. Okay, it is nothing to do with 25%. Okay, this is less than 1%. It's like having half of a percent. Not 50%, but half of 1%. So 1/4% is less than 1%. So if you write on a test, somebody wrote this equals 25%. Okay, they are two different percentages. That's a quarter, or 0.25%, and that is 25%. So now I'll just rub this off. So this is, once again, the symbol is saying out of 100. So I can have 1/4 out of 100. Okay. Now this looks confusing, but just remember, out of 100 is the same as saying dividing by 100. Because if I grab this out of 100, okay, I'm going to write it like this. I still have my quarter, but out of 100, okay, simply means dividing by 100. Same thing. I could have done that with this one here. 15 out of 100, I could have said 15 divided by 100. So I could have written this fraction as 15 divided by 100. These are saying the same thing. And now this is quite easy. All I got to do is, if I'm doing it by hand, turn division into times. So I have 1/4 times. Now don't forget that that 100 is over a 1. And to turn division into times, we've got to flip the fraction on the right hand side. So flip it, I have 1 over 100. Sorry that I'm squishing this in. I'll just change my color. So I turn this to times by flipping 101. And last of all, we can just squeeze it right in the bottom. Okay, 1 times 1 is 1 over 4 times 100 is 400. And that's it. That's our answer. So it's saying, for example, 1 out of 400 people never wash their hair, which is good to just have 1 person out of 400. And we're done. And we can see how 1 out of 400 is not 25%, because 25% is 25 out of 100. And this is much smaller. Okay, next question. So now we have to turn, so question 6 is asking us to find 32% of $125. So we go shopping, we see a lot of sales that tell us, you know, we've got 40% off, 20% off. So this problem here is something you'll be using for the rest of your life. So 32%, all you got to do is write 32% as 32 out of, that means out of 100. Of in maths, in this case, means times. And $125, just, we can leave the dollar sign out for now. So 125 is really 125 over 1. And now all we got to do is simplify before we multiply. So 100 and 125, I can divide them by 25. 100 divided by 25 is 4. 125 divided by 25 is 5. And that's all I think I can do. So my next step is to go 32 times 5, which is 160. 4 times 1 is 4. Okay, and then 160 divided by 4 is 4 into 16 goes 4 times. 4 into 0 can't go, so we have 40. Now, of course, now before you just stop, what did we just find? 32% of $125. Now, we don't add a percentage symbol because we're not finding a percentage, okay? We are finding an amount, and our units were given to us. We have dollars. So we should end up with a dollar sign saying 32% of $125, we are saving $40. So don't forget to put that dollar sign there. And just remember, we are not finding a percentage. So if you did put the percentage symbol on your test, that's a mistake. All right, next question. Okay, next question, we have 240% of 80. Now, before we do this, just look and see what we have. 240% has passed 100%. So basically, we will be gaining something. Now, of 80, if I know 200% is double of 100%. So if I double 80, I will have 160. So I'm going to have something much higher than 160, or higher than 160, just as an estimate, because 200%, we've doubled 100%, so double 80. Plus we have that 40%. So to set this up, we just go 240. Once again, it's out of 100 because of that symbol. We'll put our equal sign of times 80 over 1. Cancel our zeros. Now, when doing this, be careful. I crossed off 1 0 from the bottom, 1 from the top. I can do it again. 1 from the bottom, 1 from the top. And I'm left with 1 times 1 on the bottom, which will leave me with 1. And 24 times 8, which will leave me with 192. And our final answer is simply 192. And we're done. Now, we haven't been given dollars or anything, or there's no units, so the answer is simply 192. And that's it. And we can see how 192 is more than double of 80, because 240%, I'll say it once again, it's 200% is double of 100%, and plus that 40%. Now, our next question, question 7, it asks us, okay, what is, so for 7A, 65 cents as a percentage of $2. So whenever you see two different units, so what we mean by units is how are we breaking up something. In this case, 65 cents, that's one unit in cents, and we've got dollars here, and $2. Now I know that $1, in $1 I have 100 cents. So I'm going to change my $2 into cents so I have the same unit. You can turn 65 cents into dollars, but you will be working with decimals, so we try and avoid that. So $2, I know $2 is equal to 200 cents. Same thing. So I'll work with that. So now, to set this up, you got to read the question carefully. 65 cents as a percentage of $2. If I added in this word here, out of, okay, that's what the question's asking you. 65 cents as a percentage out of $2. Out of, I know, it means the vinculum. So I have to have my fraction. And 65 cents, well, 65 cents out of $2, but instead of $2, I'll put my 200 cents. Okay, and I've got my fraction. And now to turn this fraction into a percentage, because the question is asking us, what is it as a percentage? We know we simply now times it by 100 and add this percentage symbol, or 100 over 1. And now simplify before we multiply. Oh, I forgot my equal sign. And I'm left with 65 times 1 is 65. 2 times 1 is 2. It's now a percentage, but we don't leave it like this. You just use your calculator. 65 divided by 2, well, 2 into 6 goes 3 times. No remainders. 2 into 5 goes 2 times, which is 4, so remainder 1 over 2. Okay, percent. Well, 32.5% or 32.5%. But I've just left it in fraction form. And that's it. Now, this question asks us to calculate the percentage of the letter A in the word fantastic. So your first step is, whenever figuring out, calculating a fraction, when you're analyzing things, you have to first calculate or count what is the total amount of things you're dealing with. In this case, we have letters. So the amount of letters in the word fantastic, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that will make my denominator. And out of those 9 letters, 1, 2, I've got 2 A's. So 2 out of 9 letters are A's. And if the question was, what's the fraction of A's in the word fantastic, that will be my answer. But it asks us, what is the percentage? So now all I got to do is times this by 100, and it's really 100 over 1. And don't forget, we've got to add that symbol later on. Simplify before we multiply. Doesn't look like we can, so 2 times 100 is 200. 9 times 1 is 9, and it's a percentage. Now you can just use your calculator to help you with this. 9 into 200 can go 22 times. Remainder 2 over 9, and it's a percentage. If you put this in your calculator, you would have gotten 22.2222%, so you could have had that as your answer as well. And either one is fine because the question didn't specify to have it in fraction form or decimal, but you should know how to write it both ways. Now, next question, question 8. Now, question 8 asks us how to mentally calculate 10% of anything. And to use the example, what is 10% of $24.50? Okay, now just quickly, 10%, so to explain and understand this properly, 10% can be written as 10 out of 100. Same thing. If I simplify my 10 out of 100, chop a 0 off and a 0, I am left with 1 over 10. Now, if you remember, having 1 over 10 is the same as saying, or multiplying by 1 over 10 is the same as dividing by 10. These two things, are the same thing. Okay? And if we look at, for example, a half, if I said to you, divide 10 by 2, you know that is 5. Half of 10 is 5. Or if I said to you, what is 10 times, instead of 2, 1 over 2, it will also give you a 5. So dividing by 2 or multiplying by a half is the same as dividing by 2. And that happens with anything, any number, any fraction, as long as the number on top is a 1. If it's a 1, you're simply dividing by that bottom number. So just keep that in mind. I'll just clear the page. So once again, we had 10% of $24.50. So the trick is, if 10% means to divide by 10, the same thing, okay? Whenever we divide by 10 or 100 or 1,000, all we have to do is move our decimal that many times to the left because our number is getting smaller. Because 10 has 1 0, all I got to do is mentally move this decimal one place to the left so that its new place is there. Okay, so I'd be left with 2 point, that's gone from there, so 45. And because we're dealing with dollars, well, it'll be $2.45. And you do that with anything. A quick example, if I had 10% of $27.75, 10% of $27.75, mentally move decimal back once. So you have $2 and let's see. Oh, I should have put 0. That's okay. Would have $2.775. Now this isn't saying 775 cents. So all we're going to do is round it off to 2 decimal places because we don't deal with thousands of cents. So if we round it off to 2 decimal places, we would have $2, and that's 5 is, if it's 5 or more, I add a 1 to the 7. So, and 78. So $2.78. And once again, in our country, we don't have 1 cent pieces, so we would round it off to 80 cents. And that's it. So we'll do the next question. I'll just clear the page. So with B, it then asks us, well, if we have 20% off something, how can we calculate it mentally using that 10% by moving the decimal? And all you got to do is just do that. Find 10%, double what you have, and it will give you 20% because 20% is double of 10%. So back to the example, if we have $24.50 and we found 10% of this before, 10% move the decimal back once was $2.45. Okay? Now that was my 10%. Now for me to get 20%, all I got to do is double $2.45. Well, double $2 leaves me with $4, and 45 cents, double that, leaves me with 90 cents. And that's what 20% is. So 20% of $24.50 is $4.90 because I first found 10% by moving the decimal back one place, which was $2.45. Then I just doubled this. Okay, and that's it. Now, question 9, it tells us that Wendy got 11 out of 18 for her first spelling test and 19 out of 30 for her second spelling test. And then it asks which test gave her the best percentage. Now, you can just use a calculator to work this out, but you have to show some working out. And basically, with these fractions, all we have to do is turn them into a percentage, okay? And to do that, we multiply them by 100 and add the symbol. Okay, so we'll do her first score first. Now you can just use a calculator to help you with this, but I can simplify before I multiply. 18 divided by 2 is 9. 100 divided by 2 is 50. Okay, And like I said, use your calculator to help you with this. And then we're left with 11 times 50 is 550. 9 times 1 is 9. And if you just put this in your calculator, okay, 550 divided by 9 leaves us with 61.1111%, or we can just write the 1 with a dot on top, and it's a percentage. So that was 61.1 with a dot on top percent. And then we do the same for our next fraction, or the score that she got. She got 19 out of 30 for her other score. Okay, once again, we times this by 100. And I'm going to put this, I can simplify this, but I'll just put this straight into the calculator. And I'll bring the calculator up just to show you how to use the calculator in case you're not sure. So all we have to do is, there are two ways of doing this. You can go 19 divided by 30 times 100, or 19 times 100 divided by 30. Same answer. I'll just go 19 divided by 30, so her score, 19 divided by 30, okay? And you can see we've got 0.63333. My next step is to times it by 100 to turn that into a percentage. Ooh, I don't know what I did, just do it again. 19 divided by 30, okay, times 100 will give us 63.33333%, and we know how to write this decimal properly. So to write our final answer, we will have 63.3 with a dot on top percent. And we can see her two scores. The first one gave her 61.11%, and this one was 63.3333%. And we can see which one was the better score, her second score. Okay, and we can say, to write our final sentence, to sum up what we found, therefore, okay, her best, imagine me writing this, her best score was 19 out of 30. So try and write a sentence to summarize what you have found, and to state your answer. And that's it. So for this one, we just use our calculators. We have shown working out, and then just put this into our calculator. So whenever you get a score for whatever subject, just say it was, in this case, 19 out of 30, just times it by 100. So 19 divided by 30 times 100 will give you your percentage for that mark, for that grade. Now, question 10 tells us that Brian has 12 birds, 4 dogs, 3 rabbits, 5 cats, 10 goldfish. And then 10A asks us what, or just question 10, sorry, what percentage of his pets are birds? So what percentage of his pets are birds? Now, to do this, we have to first, remember, we're writing out a fraction. So first count the total amount of, in this case, animals we have. So we've got 12 plus 4 plus 3 plus 5 plus 10. We include the birds, include everything. So add these up to give us, 34 animals in total. And so that will be our denominator. And we are focusing on birds. So we've got 12 birds out of 34 in total. And now we're going to turn this into a percentage. So multiply this by 100. Of course, it's 100 over 1. And don't forget, it's a percentage once we do that. And once again, you can simplify before we multiply. But let's just use our calculator, because the question doesn't actually tell us to leave it in fraction form. So using our calculator quickly, we simply go 12 divided by 34. So 12 divided by 34, and then times 100. And we can see we've got 35.2941118. Okay, it's an infinite decimal. Let's just round it off to the second decimal place. So 35.29%. So equals 35.29%. Okay, now we should write approximately, because we did rounded off. So when you have that's the reason why we should leave our answers in fraction form, because sometimes we know fractions some fractions never end, and so when we round it off, our answer won't be exact anymore. But because we are dealing with animals, I guess you can round it off, but because we use our calculator, which is fine, right, sorry, that squiggly equal sign, which means approximately equal to, because we need to round it off. Of course, we can use our fraction skills to leave our answer in fraction form, which would have given us, so the exact answer would have been 35, and the decimal we had before would have been 5 out of 17%. Okay, so just remember, if you do round off a decimal, you should put the approximately equal to sign. To have it an equal sign, which is saying it's an exact answer, you'd have it in fraction form. Because 5 divided by 17 is a fraction or a decimal that never ends, so we have to round it off. So really, the best answer would have been to leave it in fraction form. But as long as you're showing me you know what you're doing, that's fine. And our final question on our test was question 11. And Ming Lei, she earns $18,000 a year. Okay, or $18,000 in 1 year, and she has received a pay rise of 3%. And 11A asks us how much more will she earn per year. So basically, we have to find, well, what is 3% of $18,000? So 3% of $18,000. I can leave the dollar sign out for now. And I can do this. This is just saying 3%. Well, it's 3 out of 100. Of in maths is times 18,000. Okay, we do have our calculators to help us. Let's just do it quickly. Cancel out the zeros. Cancel out the zeros. And now we're left with 1 and 1 on the bottom. So it's going to be over 1. And then 3 times 18 is 54. And of course, don't forget, we've got a 0 sitting here, so add the 0. So 3 times, it was really 3 times 180, gave us 540. Now, the final answer is $540. And we don't have to write that 1 there. So, to write a statement, okay, we can say, therefore, she will be earning $540 extra per year. And that's it. And it's important to write your final statement to explain what you have found and how you have answered the question. And now 11B, I'll just clear the page. B asks us, how much does Ming Lei earn annually after her pay rise? Now, annually means 1 year, a cycle of a year. So if somebody says to you, how much you earn annually, they're saying how much do you earn every year. So with this question, if she was earning $18,000 and she received a pay rise of 3%, okay, and so her pay rise of 3% was $540, all we have to do is add these two figures together, and that will be how much she's earning after her new pay rise. So to add this, you can just chuck it in your calculator, or we've got 0, 4, 5, and that's it. So 1, 2, 3, put your comma in here. And so therefore, she, change color, will be earning $18,540. And we can use the keyword from the question. We can write annually. So just use keywords from the question that was given to you, and we're done. And that was our last question. So just go back and just make sure you're okay with most of these fractions and percentages skills. And if you do have any more problems, please come and see me. Thank you.